morning, welcome to the channel. In today's episode, we're sanding this deck. Okay, bringing the camera closer, you can really see the dead giveaway, and that's just that the original stain, it's a solid stain, so it almost looks like paint, but it's almost, well, it is peeling off. So that's definitely a dead giveaway. The bare wood is exposed. Another couple giveaways are rotting spots. Now, that's not a stain issue as much as it is water's been sitting there somehow trapped. This is a piece of plexiglass for the basement window to let some light in, so that's a high prone area for water to sit and rot away. And you can also see with the nail holes, they're a little more weathered around where the nail is in. So the nail's a little too deep in some of these areas, allowing for water to come and sit and rot away the wood prematurely. So those are some of the things you can look for when you're deciding whether or not your deck needs a fresh coat of stain or some kind of conditioner. Another test you can do is grab yourself a glass of water. This is from the rain barrel, so it's a little green, but you can pour this onto the deck, and if it doesn't bead up but soaks in, you know that you have to reapply. That means that the current weatherproofing isn't resisting the weather. So this is just soaking right in. It should bead up if it's still working as it should be working. We'll try over here in the shade where it hardly sees any sun. Sun is one of the big killers, the UV rays, of destroying your coating of any kind. We'll see if this can bead up at all. So this definitely does more than that stuff that's been exposed to the wear and tear of a high traffic area as well as the sun. But regardless, we're gonna redo all of it. So I'll grab a couple tools here and we will begin. To apply anything, you have to make sure you have a sound surface to go on, so all that flaking paint has to come off. That's the most important thing for this process. You can do that a couple ways. You can use an orbital sander, which is this. It is a random orbital sander that needs to be have an empty bag because it's a little dusty. You can use a belt sander, which achieves the same thing. It's a little more intense. You could get down on your hands and knees and just use some sandpaper. That's going to take a while. Or if time is of the essence, you can rent a stand-up sander, which is what I did. So you can tell by the size, it is quite bigger. This pad is going to take it down a whole lot quicker than this pad. So that, and it's a stand up, and it's just a lot easier of a process. So this is what we're going to use. It was a $60 rental at Home Depot. I think that's worth it. It will probably save me 4 hours, 6 hours, who knows. I did just go around and with my vacuum, I've blown off the deck. Just got rid of all the debris so I can get a good look at it, because the next step here is to get down and see if there's any nails or screws or any obstructions that are going to cause damage to the sandpaper and just tear it up. So we're going to have to pound some nails in, most likely. You can see here that this nail is set high. This nail is nicely in there. And that should be enough to set it in. Again, we see this nail is protruding quite a bit. Smack it with the hammer. Oh my goodness, that sun. And if it still isn't in all the way, use a nail set and just give it a couple taps. I'm going to go around and finish doing that, and then we can begin sanding. Alright, moving over here to the big floor sander. It's a pretty easy setup. You just get your buffer pad. This helps follow the contour of the deck and protects the machine as well as your deck. Because your deck's not going to be flat, most likely. All your boards are going to be cupped and everything, and while you could bring it down all perfectly flat, you're probably going to end up taking off quite a bit of material, which isn't necessary. Stick this on. The weight of the machine kind of holds it on place. And then I'm just jumping straight to 36 grit sandpaper. The number references how many granules are there per square inch. So the lower the number, the more coarse it is per square inch. There's 36 granules of, I don't even know what they use actually in it, but the higher the number, the more there are, so the more fine of a finish you get. A standard finishing sandpaper is usually 120 for sanding and then maybe 220 for a bit of a finer finish, but then there's sandpaper all the way up to 5,000 down to, I don't know what the lowest is actually, 26 grit maybe. Stick this on. And then the weight of the machine pretty much keeps that all in place. Okay, it fires up fine. I'm gonna go ahead and do a chunk and see how it turns out. One thing to remember when you're sanding as well, regardless of what you're sanding, you should keep that sander moving, otherwise it's gonna dig into the material and create a dish, an uneven surface. This one has a vibration built into it, so it's pretty good with traveling around and avoiding that, but just something to keep in mind whenever you're sanding drywall, wood, or a deck. Okay, it's turning out pretty good already. You can see the difference in between the sanded wood and the unsanded wood. I just want to make sure we were on the right track before I fully committed, but we're going to start in that corner and work our way back. All right, it's working pretty good. I'm gonna carry on, do this whole thing, and I'll get back to you. It's pretty hot, so I don't know how much the camera will like that, but we'll come back when it's all sanded up. You can see the pattern I did. I went back and forth, side to side a bit. Just whatever you need to do to pick up that loose stuff. We are done with that big sander, but we still have some places to get where that was too big. So that's where a belt sander and my orbital is gonna come in handy. For places like this at the stairs, I'll just hit it with my belt sander. And then for any places I can't get with even the belt sander, I can then move on with my palm sander. So with the combination of both the palm sander and the belt sander, we're able to get pretty much everything that the big sander wasn't able to get. I'm going to go ahead and finish off the perimeter mostly and the steps, and then we can clean it off, blow it off, and sweep it off, whatever we got to do to get rid of all the dust, and we can begin staining. Okay, I've gone around with the palm sander and belt sander. I've gotten all the places around the edges, underneath this bench here that the bigger sander couldn't get to. I've blown everything off, and it looks like this. It's kind of what you want to aim for, just no loose pieces, and because we're using the same color of stain going over top of it, we don't have to go right down to the bare wood. This is the stain I'm using by Beauty Tone, which I believe is a home hardware product here in Canada. I've got some rubber gloves so I don't make a mess, and then this is my applicator. I just have a push broom, more like a scrubbing broom with microfiber cloth wrapped around it and clamped on. Save myself a few bucks by doing that. And then I'll be applying this with the microfiber cloth. You can use a brush as well around the corners and everything where your bigger applicator can't get to, but this is going to be how I'm going to do it. push broom, and then a microfiber cloth to get around where I can't quite reach. Chances of these gloves fitting are pretty slim for me because my hand isn't. Yeah, that might see how long that lasts. And then you want to go with the deck boards. That first coat's not going to be the greatest because I have to work it into my applicator. Come back through here, get all this. I'm redoing this as well, so that's why I'm not being too careful with the application of this. I'm using the dry side to rub against there so I don't get it on too much. I'm just dabbing it like this into the knots in the more porous areas so those can be properly sealed as well. Then these kind of areas are always going to take a bit longer. To be mindful I don't get on anything else, I'm actually riding my fingers against this board just to create a bit of space. Okay, that's pretty much it for the application of it. I'm gonna carry on and then we'll do a second coat, and that should make a nice even coverage. It already looks like a new deck. I went ahead and finished that first coat of stain. It's the next day actually already, and I just finished applying my second coat. I used a wider nylon brush. Just provides a nicer coat on top. The first coat, because it was raw dry wood, basically after I had sanded it, it soaked in that first layer pretty good, so I used the method with the microfiber cloth instead to apply that first coat. But the second coat I wanted to be a bit nicer, also a bit more thin, and I wanted to be able to get into the grooves of the deck boards themselves a bit nicer, a bit better. So that first and second coat are applied. Just gonna wait for it to dry. Says a full 72 hours before you put stuff back on it or walk on it too, or high traffic areas at least need that amount of time to cure properly. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go ahead and stain this pergola now, which will probably also take a full day or two. It's a lot of cutting in. Alright, see you in the next video.